Hi, and welcome to Joining Us, celebrating 50 years of Bands of America. My name is Chuck Henson, and for 35 of those 50 years, I was the primary public address announcer for Bands of America's series of regional and the Grand National Marching Band Championships. Now, over the course of the next 25 episodes, I'm going to do my very best to bring you the people and stories that ultimately have created the excellence that is BOA.
I just was fascinated by this man's marketing ability and the idea that he was putting together a national organization.
Well, one was having hamburgers directly across the table from Dr. Ravelli. So I'm literally watching him eat a hamburger thinking, that's William D. Ravelli having a hamburger in front of me.
Back when Marching Bands of America began in 1975, I and my high school marching band were one of the first to participate.
10 years after the experience, I'm still hearing from kids who thought that was one of the coolest things they ever got to do.
I mean, when you went joining us, those kids went nuts right then. You could have read out of a phone book from that point on. You had them.
They're just going to blow the roof off the place. Like, I get chills thinking about it.
The rifles would spin rifles, then they would catch them and they would fall on the ground at the end of the tune.
Like a death drop.
Yeah.
What's in your blood? If you cut my arm, I'll bleed Bands of America, Music for All.
What Marching Bands of America started was innovative, so new, so exciting.
50 years, a half century? Are you kidding me?
Happy 50th anniversary to Bands of America.
So get your program, find a great seat here in our virtual stadium, and get ready to learn everything you ever wanted to know about Bands of America. Joining us from Bellbrook, Ohio. Hi, everybody. Welcome back to Joining Us, 50 years of Bands of America. You know, in the episodes that we've recorded so far, I have learned so very much about an organization that I already thought I knew everything about. But what we're finding is that the breadth of this organization, of Music for All, of Bands of America, and prior to that, Marching Bands of America, has touched hundreds of thousands of people. And the roots are long and deep. And it really feels like family to me when I talk to every single person. And today's guest is no different. I want you to welcome Mike Davis. Mike is joining us from his home in Orlando, Florida. Hi, Mike. How are you?
I'm great, man.
Now, Mike has an interesting story with Bands of America because he predates Marching Bands of America. You predate Summer Nationals. You go way back to a high school marching band show somewhere in Illinois where this concept was uttered into your ear, weren't you?
That's exactly it.
Tell me that story.
Well, I was part of the Oregon High School Band, and we were very competitive, and it was called Mid-American Combine of Championships Bands. And we'd go on tour in the summertime and such. So somehow I got a call, and they asked me if I was interested in being, because they heard about my bands and the championships and all of that. And they asked me if I would be interested in being a band director at the University of Wisconsin-Whitewater. And I went, would I?
Now, Mike, when you were at Oregon, was that early 70s, mid 70s?
Yeah, I got to Oregon in 1969, and I was the director of bands there, of bands and orchestras, until 1975, when they asked me to become the band director.
Let me tell you, for anyone that doesn't know of the Oregon Band Program, let me tell you, it was a monster in its day. I mean, it really just dominated everything and was one of the most innovative programs of its time.
Well, I'll tell you, it was, the last show we did, I came off the line with Canzona, and I featured the rifle section with Flight of the Bumblebee.
That's a perfect rifle line piece, by the way.
We did it all, you know.
Where did you find your inspiration in those years? Because there really wasn't anything like what you guys were doing happening.
Yeah, and I started using more percussion, and enhanced percussion because Larry McCormick and I, way back, worked together with Ray Bongart and the Madison Scouts.
I'm a Madison Scout alumni as well.
That's right.
Yeah.
And I think Chops was there and all that. So basically, what had happened is we just decided that we're going to join this, and the Oregon Band, and away we go. I had one of my friends, it was at Dakota, Illinois. Remember that one?
I do. Yeah.
And there was a band director friend there, Ken Miller was his name, and he was a Vandercook grad, and so was I. And he says, hey, Davis, you'd think you're pretty hotshot. Why don't you come out with us and see what it's like? And then I had to join Rocori, Minnesota, and all these bands. And guess what? I said, okay, so I did. And sure enough, it proved out to really be something for us.
So you were telling me previously about a marching band show that you were at, and you happened to be kind of just leaning against the fence with Larry McCormick next to you. Tell me that one again.
Okay, I got to tell you. Well, basically, my band had just finished performing, and I was watching a band that was one class ahead of us. I mean, over what we were, and that was Oskaloosa, Iowa. And Paul Brizzy was a really good friend of mine, and I was watching the band because we were always kind of butting heads like that. And the next thing I know, I look over, and there's Larry McCormick leaning against the fence watching. And I walked up and I'm like, hey, man, because I bought stuff from him and at his stores and all of that. And matter of fact, when Scott was little, I was a jazz drummer and I actually gave lessons one time. Larry says, come down, show my kid how to play the trap set. So anyway, we started talking and Larry looks at me and he says, this is something. These bands and what they're doing. He says, you know what I'm doing? I think I'm going to start a band competition on the national level. And I went, well.
So his thought right out of the box was, this isn't going to be a local show. This is going to be bigger than that.
It's going to involve the nation. He wasn't worried about the Mid-American Combine or anything like that.
When was the last time you were at Grand Nationals?
Oh, it's been a long time.
But we need to get you back.
But we can get into this and talk about it because there was a time when I was on the board, and we'll get into that later.
Yeah.
That, I had contacts with Disney, and I had the Voices of Liberty, and I had guys like from the Future Corps and that, and I was able to bring them in because I would talk to our marketing people at Disney and say, hey, listen, this thing's good, man. We got to get some exposure there. So way back. But anyway, so the next thing I know, I went and I was busy building my band. And about halfway through the marching season, all of a sudden, the guy that's head of the building and grounds supervisor walks in, and there's Larry McCormick, and I'm in my office. And Larry McCormick comes in, he's, Mike, and I'm like, what the heck are you doing? And he says, listen, I'm thinking about doing something here, and maybe this would be a great venue for us.
Your high school at Oregon?
No, this was when I was at Whitewater then.
Now you're at Whitewater. Okay. I'm fast forwarding to where we are now. Okay. Well, let me ask you this, Mike. How many years was it from the conversation on the fence at a marching band show to when they walk in your office? How many years had gone by?
Just a year. It was my first year at the Whitewater.
So he's moving quickly on this. He's got this idea, and then he's making it happen quickly then.
Yeah, because, he no sooner said he was going to do it, and it was my first year of being a college band director, and Larry shows up in the office and is ready to rock.
Did he know you were there? Did he know when he walked in the door it was going to be you sitting behind the desk?
Well, he would have known because I think I told him I was going to be at the University of Wisconsin-Whitewater, but I kind of lost what really went on with that. But all I know is, we had DCI and all of those people over there, and he saw the venue and he was like, wait, this is the place to be.
I have to tell you, Mike, some of my greatest memories are associated with that stadium in Whitewater, Wisconsin. In 1981 was my first year with the Madison Scouts. We got third at championships that year, but we were undefeated, and 27th Lancers were undefeated coming into DCI Midwest, which was right there in your building. Now, where were you in 1981? Were you with Whitewater still?
No, that was my first year as a professional conductor for Disney.
So you had already left by then. But that building, I have a photograph of me, and the grass was all brown because it was summer and it hadn't rained in a long time. But there is something about the University of Wisconsin-Whitewater for Bands of America and for Drum Corps International that is just, it's a place that we all hold in our heart. And you're the reason for that.
Well, there it was. And the supervisor called me, hey, do you think this is right to do? And I said, okay, let me see. So I called up the president and I said to the president, his name was President Connor. He was provost. And I said, we got to do this. We got to do this. This is going to be great for our band. This is going to be great for everything. We got to do this. And next thing I know, Larry got the contract.
Do you happen to know what the stadium rental was back then?
No, I have not a clue.
That would be an interesting number to find out.
So Larry says to me, he says, well, we want to use you. So we're going to have you judge and we're using your facility, but I would like for you to do a leadership for the directors clinic. I'd like you to do a drum major clinic for the drum majors there and for the student leaders. And then I did a percussion workshop on the importance of tuning your drums and such so that it's effective for today.
Were you the whole show at that point? It sounds like you're doing this, you're doing that, you're doing the next thing, you're venue, you're judging.
My gosh. And that was prior to Tim.
Wow.
That was prior to Tim Lausenheiser teaching the leadership. Because Tim came in after, because we had Nick Valenciano.
Dr. Valenciano, yep.
How about the other guy? Gary something. I can't remember his name.
Off the top of my head.
He worked for some company that he was a promoter. Gary Beck.
Gary Beckner. Yeah, Beckner. What were the challenges with that first? Was the event called Summer Nationals that first time, or what was it called? Do you remember?
I think it was. I don't know that answer because I think we did call it, or the international.
I think we all know it as Summer Nationals.
Yeah.
But I don't know, because Grand Nationals was born in the fall. That was a whole different event. But were there any challenges with the university in trying to get that first event happening? Do you recall any specific stories associated with oh my God, the roadblocks or things that may have happened to have, that's stuck in your mind?
No, it just seemed like on my side of it, I had what I had to do. The groundspeople, there was no problem there. The bands came in. As far as me sitting there and getting any flack of anything, it was nothing. It just was the greatest thing for that university. And my next year, I had a 200-piece band. Where I came in there, I had like 110 people.
So it was a win for the university for sure as well. Yeah.
And I said to myself, I'm going to get this. And then Ray Bungard gave me all of his charts. And he would do them. So I played all Ray Bungard and Madison Scouts.
All right, let's take a moment for a quick break because I want to listen to some of your stories. Now, remember, if you've got a special Music for All or Bands of America memory or story, you can record it and be a part of this very 50th anniversary podcast. Just visit musicforall.org/podcast to contribute your story.
Congratulations, Music for All, on 50 years of incredible, life-changing opportunities. I'm grateful to have had some very formative experiences in my life, courtesy of Bands of America. This is Tom Merrill, and I was a drum major camper in Whitewater in 1982, and joined the swag team in 1985 and was involved with that off and on for about 10 years during undergrad and grad school. Chuck, your first podcast with Dr. Tim brought back a lot of fantastic memories from those earlier days when we were actually on the team together. In fact, I still think I have a 10th anniversary t-shirt sitting around somewhere. It's amazing to think that here it is 50 years now. But people like Dr. Tim and George Parks, Charlie Mangini, and countless others that I had the good fortune to learn from over the years helped shape my leadership and music educator skills. And even today, 25 years removed from actually being a band director, I still try to bring those qualities and that ethic to everything I do now as a performance travel planner. This past fall, I was at Grand Nationals for the first time in several years, traveling with one of my client groups who was performing there. And it was jaw-dropping to see the growth of the event over time and how the caliber of performances has evolved. That's a long way from those days back in the 1980s. As is said so often, it's all about the relationships. The mentors and friends who have touched my life, whose fantastic bands I see perform, or those that remain in contact and I have the chance to work with on occasion. That has been the most rewarding part of my Music for All experiences. And of course, this is the part where I mentioned that my wife Jen and I met as swags in 1993, and we've been together ever since. Thank you, Music for All, for the countless lives like mine that you have positively changed over these 50 years. Here's to many more.
If you, and you may not have even taken time to do this, but I like to reflect on things that where they are today and where they started. And from your perspective, from that first event, because you were there, you were in the building, it's the fact that it's in the building is you, and you think about what Music for All is today and your role in getting it there, that's got to make you feel incredible.
Well, and guess what? I was involved and on the board when we decided to call it Music for All.
Really?
I was there with Sammy Feldstein and Mike Coomer. And what was that guy's name that was the Matt?
Matt Carter?
Yeah.
Yeah, from the ICV.
Matt Carter and Chuck was there. and we were creating it, Music for All. And see, I had always been that way. I always felt that we have to have music for everything. And matter of fact, at Vandercook one time, I taught a class, and I'm telling these band directors, I'm saying, you're trying to recruit. L.J. Hancock had it perfect. What he did is he had an event in Norman, and what he did with that is he would go and he'd have the elementary and the junior high bands and the high school bands, and he'd have these gigantic big concerts with everybody, and all these people would come, and no wonder his band was what it was, because he had a recruiting system where people just loved it.
Yeah, they were a monster.
And then because of me being at Disney, I was conducting Voices of Liberty and doing things like that in special events, and I was conducting symphony orchestras, and I even had more of a passion for it, saying, yes, let's do it. It has to be music for everybody. There's one thing I did forget, and that is Dino Riccio.
With Yamaha, yeah.
Well, Dino Riccio is one of my kids, and he started in Whitewater, and he went down to JMU, and he was the very first guy that was the drummer for Future Corps.
Really?
And I remember him coming in and saying, look, I'm not going to have one bass drum. So he comes in and he's got tom-toms tied together. And this poor guy, his name was Paulie Collins, and Paulie was from Boston Crusaders. And he says, well, yeah, man, I want this. And he was like a bulldog. But you can imagine it was a trap set
on top of his bass drum.
Down.
So, Mike, your attachment to Bands of America and to Music for All, while it started there with the Whitewater event, you go to JMU, you go from there, you're recruited by Disney. You brought Music for All with you along that path, didn't you?
Yeah, I just, I'm going to go way back to me. When I was 6 years old, I was on stage. My dad was a vaudeville performer, and the next thing you know, I was tap dancing, I was singing, I was playing the guitar.
I love that. I love that.
I was a jazz drummer, and matter of fact, I went to Vandercook thinking I'm going to be a jazz drummer, and by the time I finished my freshman year, it was like, I love teaching.
You're clearly very good at it.
But anyway, what had happened is Joe Estacco, like I said, he called and he wanted me to come down and be a consultant because JMU was going to really start pushing football. Well, again, he says, one of the best ways to have a band, and the band wasn't very good. So he called me and says, you got to tell us what to do. And so I went down there and I told him what to do. And that's when that president said, we don't care what you say here. We're keeping you here.
It's nice to be wanted, isn't it?
And I'm like, well, wait. I just had the University of Wisconsin-Whitewater, and I got this thing on a roll. He said, no, I don't care what it is, what the money or anything. And he ended up sending a moving van, moved me and my family, and took care of our home. He was bound determined I was going to go.
That's because you're just that good, my friend.
Plus, he gave me an $8,000 raise. So I'm like, okay, I'll go to Virginia.
How many years were you at JMU?
I was there from 1977 through 81. But what happened is it was actually the marching season of 1980.
Okay.
And that was a toughie. When I called that president and I told him, I thought he was just going to sue me because he said,
no, for what? What was going on?
Because what happened is just like everything else that seemed to happen, people would call me and ask me. And all of a sudden I get this call from Bob Raddick from Disney out in LA. And he says, listen, we have been talking and we've been following your programs, and we would like for you to be the director of the All-American College Marching Band for Disney and for Disney World. Well, I went down, I interviewed, they said, you're in.
Well, let me not get you to Disney just yet. Stay back at JMU for a minute, because in those years you were there, you brought Bands of America to Virginia, right?
Exactly.
Tell me about that.
Well, I was part of the whole situation with it, and I thought the best way to promote this and get this JMU thing going is let's bring in Bands of America, and I can use their marketing, because they were already getting groups from Pennsylvania and LJ School at Norwin, and then all these Virginia schools, and that Northern Virginia started coming in. And some of those bands were doing some crazy, wild things, and it was a perfect fit. And so that's what I did. I said, let's do it. So I went to the president and I said, you want to promote this school just like I did at Whitewater? I said, you want to promote this school? You want to really get this thing going? You got to do this, Marching Bands of America.
So did you go to Bands of America and say, hey, I'm now at JMU. We've got this great building. These are the facilities. You should host a regional here.
That's right. And one called a Larry.
That's what did it. One call to Larry.
I mean, one call to Larry. And by that time, Tim Lassenheiser was there. And, Bob Buckner, me, and Tim Lassenheiser were kind of like the college guys of the day.
Wow.
That's
some monster names you've just attached yourself to.
Yeah, and I got more about Bob Buckner because there's some really good things with him. So anyway, yeah, he says, let's do it. And I remember Tim one time was there, and that's before we had our big stadium, so we only had one side. And Tim's up there, and I heard him say to Larry, why don't you buy a university like this and give it to me? And you know how funny Tim is.
Oh, yeah.
And it was just hilarious to hear him say that. But anyway, and then Larry asked me to be on the board, and I said, definitely. So once I was at Disney, that's when they said, let's go for it there.
All right, well, let's get you over to Disney now. So once you got and are now consulting and working for Disney, I mean, the thing that pops into my head right away is Future Core. That was your baby, wasn't it?
Well, it was. So basically what had happened is I got there, the opening of Epcot Center was going to be one of the biggest things. And I was extremely busy breaking into professional conducting because you just, that's different than college or anything else. Man, you get pros, they're going to really rock. It's just like any professional thing. So it came at a time when we were getting ready for Christmas. And I had what's called the candlelight. We brought in like Rock Hudson or James Earl Jones and people like that. And so I'm conducting and doing all of this. And all of a sudden they said, yeah, we want this core. So I'm sitting there thinking, okay, but guess what? I'll get the people. I'll do it. We'll call. So I called up Wayne Downing. I called up all the guys that I knew and got music from them. Oh, yeah, okay, Mike. Blah, blah, blah. And the next thing I know, I had the music. I had everything. And I had the guys.
Well, how did you recruit the players? Where did they come from?
What we did is we just said, hey, Disney audition, blah, blah, blah. And then that's all. And then they'd all start coming in. Well, basically, too, because of my Whitewater, and I have to say this, at Oregon High School, I had some kids that were amazing. And I followed them, and I gave them scholarships to come to JMU. And, one of them is Dan Ferris, the marching band director, and Luther Apple. His dad was my principal.
Wow.
And Luther went there. And then Jeannie DiMaggio, she played trombone. And I got her the full ride at JMU. And then the next thing I know, I needed somebody. And she was the first female professional person to ever play at Disney that I knew of.
Oh, wow. That's saying something. Bands of America did I can recall them doing a lot of promotion of Future Core to try to get people to come down and be involved in that as well.
Yeah, and we did. And so we would go, and I would also call guys in the corps, and I'd ask them, hey, where's some hot shots, And we were able to get them. And all of a sudden, one of the tuba players, he hadn't played in a long time, but he was kind of like, I think he was from Wisconsin somewhere, or the Chrome Domes or whatever they called them. And he wanted it. And his dad said, well, let my son be in it. And I said, well, okay, so I gotta find out what's going on. But well, he finally made it and was able to go.
What was different about Future Core for the folks that maybe aren't familiar with it? Because they were fresh.
Oh, well, yeah. And I got to say this. I called Bob Buckner and I said to Bob, look, Bob, I can't do this because I have this symphony orchestra. I got these stars coming in. Plus, I've got this new band that I started. And so will you be willing to come down and kind of lay the groundwork? And he said, sure. And when I first had the concept, I was looking for people that could play the horns but they could also have equipment. Because, see, like Jeannie and these people that I had, they knew how to twirl rifles because even in high school, they messed with it, even though they were an instrumentalist, but they knew how to do it. And so I called it an element. Well, the first thing Disney says is, hey, you're not going to have no gun here.
Right.
And I said, okay.
Right. That seems very anti-Disney.
So I invented this element. So it kind of didn't look like a rifle, but it was, and we had flags and that.
Would that be the predecessor of what they called an air blade today?
Almost like that.
Okay.
Almost. And so what I thought is that was going to work, but it didn't seem to go.
As you're talking about this and Bob Buckner's involvement, I'm connecting things in my brain because it makes perfect sense that Bob's band at Western Carolina University was as progressive as they were, based on the fact that he had started Future Corps or was part of the start of Future Corps and the kind of the innovations they made.
Yeah, and he also did the Marine Drum and Bugle Corps.
Yeah, and he's a good guy, a really, really good guy.
Oh, he is one of my best buddies. He and I are always, he'll come down and I'll go up there. I kind of owe him some trips up there because they come down here, but I do owe him some. But I can't say enough about the man. He's a gentleman and a great person. He really got those guys going. And then once we had it, the first leader of the Future Corps was Bob Franklin. And Bob Franklin was a circus performer. And he was an LSU kid.
Yeah.
And I'm telling you, he was a top-notch pro, and he kept everything in line.
So what did he do with the circus? He just played, or was he part of an act that he brought to Future Corps?
No, those circus performers, man, they got chops of steel.
Yeah.
They got to blow those things. I mean, they got that horn on their face, and they're rocking and blowing up a storm and everything else. Well, he was used to that. And some of these guys weren't used to that they were going to do 7 and 6 sets a day and better have your chops. Wow. But that's one thing about us professionals at Disney. We had chops of steel because that's what you do. You play.
Well, I mean, look at it from let's say you're a Broadway performer. You're doing 2 shows a day, 6 days a week. I mean, that's what a professional does. They play at that level. Hey, Mike, before you left University of Whitewater, were you instrumental in getting that plaque put on the stadium? You know, the one I'm talking about that says this stadium is dedicated to the first national championship with Bands of America?
I didn't. No.
They've put that in place since then. I was talking to Tim about it a few weeks ago because he was there too, obviously at that same time. And it's so, again, it's what I said about that building and about Whitewater in general. Whitewater, Wisconsin, to me, is Bands of America.
I know.
It is Drum Corps International.
It is.
Because at a time when no one was, we weren't in any big venues. DCI in 1981 was where? In Alabama, Birmingham, Alabama. It was not like it is today. Not like where Grand Nationals is in Lucas Oil Stadium, a building that was designed with Bands of America in mind. Scott McCormick was there at the groundbreaking to make sure that building did what Bands of America needed it to do. And I love that your story sets all of that in motion. I mean, everything that we are today is because of what you did back in those early days with Larry. I think it's awesome. I want to ask you a little bit about your role on the board of directors too. How many years were you on the board of directors?
That's what I was trying to think. I think it was when I came.
It becomes a blur. I understand.
Yeah, it's lost. I kept trying to do that and think it. I guess it's got to be in the archive somewhere or in the notes, but yeah. I was there when Larry Steele was heading everything, and then Scott took over. And then when we started and moved to Indianapolis, I was there. And I think I was the Grand Nationals maybe 2 or 3 times. And then what had happened, there's just so much stuff piled up on me that I couldn't do it anymore. I had the orchestras. Then all of a sudden, I was asked by Disney to start the music groups in Paris. So I had to move to Paris and live there. And
it's just horrible. It's horrible.
Start these guys. Yeah. And then after that, Japan heard about it and they called me over. So I was working with the groups in Tokyo. Sometimes I'd fly from Tokyo to Paris and then Paris back home and then back to Tokyo. I mean, my gosh.
Well, I think that, what this says to me, the people that have been at the building blocks of Bands of America, people like yourself, people with amazing backstories and history, you have touched this organization and just thrown it off into the future in a way that I can't imagine how much bigger and better it's going to get. I mean, 50 years have gone by since you were attached to that first event. Mike, is there something that you're significantly proud of as a result of your time on the board?
I think, again, we were there when we said music for all. Yeah. Why not?
Yeah. Just to continue to expand.
And also, again, because of all of the experience that I had with the different bands and that, just to make sure that I was on the cutting edge with all of that. And I knew all those judges now. And then I later on was in charge of giving the DCI award called the Spirit of Disney Award.
I remember that.
And we had to give that, but it was always me up there. And I had to choose these people and then be there to give them the check and things. And we just wanted to, again, reward.
Is there anything that I missed? Any BOA stories that are in your brain? You're like, the world needs to know this. I mean, what we're creating here is a permanent record of 50 years of excellence.
All I got to say is it is. I'm just proud of everything that it has developed into. And again, as I got more and more involved with my profession at Disney, I just had to kind of go away from it.
Mike, everything happens for a reason. And if you hadn't been sitting at your desk when Larry McCormick walked in to say, hey, let's put on a show, who knows where we'd be today? You know what I mean?
I know.
Mike, thank you so much for being part of this. I've learned a lot from you, and I appreciate all your memories and your thoughts and time with us today. Thank you so much.
I appreciate you asking me. That's one thing I kind of wish sometimes that I would have been able to be more involved. But now that I'm retired, I can do anything I want. I'm actually 80 years old. I can't believe I am, but I am. People say I don't look it and I don't sound it. Well, that's okay. I'm still having fun.
We're still here doing it, aren't we?
I know.
Thank you, sir.
All right. I thank you.
Hey, thanks for listening to the Joining Us podcast. We are celebrating 50 years of Music for All and Bands of America. Do you have your own story or memory to share? Well, I want to hear it. You can record your own story by visiting musicforall.org/podcasts. We may just include your voice in a future episode. Hey, thanks to Yamaha, our national presenting sponsor, and don't forget to make sure you're subscribed to the Music for All Podcast Network, wherever you get your podcasts. I want to thank Ben and Laura from the team at Music for All for making this happen and lining up all of our guests. And of course, the way it sounds, that's the magic of our executive producer, Patrick Keller. Joining us from Avon, Indiana.